Hey, welcome back to the next part of the video. In the last video, which was part 1, we were here at the Aero Freighter and we got everything set up with Transx so that we could get into alignment to go out to Jupiter. And we got all of our stages set up in Transx so that we can eventually work our way all the way out to Neptune after slinging all the planets to get there. But before we can get to Neptune, we have to get to Jupiter. So let's do that. Okay, so back here in stage 1, we have everything set up. So let's go to the escape plan, and we can see that we're going to begin this burn in about 3,500 seconds. So we need to go all the way around over to this point, and then we can do our ejection burn. Go ahead and warp time ahead to get over closer to that point. And as I cross over this white line here, I'm actually going to see about maybe doing a little bit more of a relative inclination correction, because it looks like it's drifted just a little bit. And currently I am in the orbit minus position.
Rotation translation.
So I'm just going to do a little bit of translation. Looks like backwards is what we need. That's bringing the relative inclination down. It's kind of hard to imagine using translation thrusters on such an enormous vessel. And we're at 0.21. Just got a little bit further to go. I'm not sure if the Aero Freighter has some kind of retro engines like the XR2 or Delta Glider, so I'm just using translation here to do this. Let's do a bit of an adjustment here. Yeah, that's not what I meant to do. So let's fix that. And let's go to the eject orientation, which is what I meant to be on. And there we go. Now a little bit more with the translation. You can see the relative inclination there coming down, 0.13, 0.12. Let me just do a small. Okay, yeah, we do have some kind of reverse thrusters, so that'll be a little faster. Okay, that's as low as that's going to get. Let's go ahead and warp time over to the time to do the burn. Coming up here in just 263 seconds. So let's go prograde. One thing I wish the Aerofreighter had would be more MFDs, like as you turn your view around this way, have, you know, a whole row of MFDs. Okay, looks like we're settled into the prograde position, and we can see that here on the forward view. Coming around here to the burn in about 200 more seconds. Let's warp time ahead to get closer to that point. Okay, we're coming up on the burn in 18 seconds. So I'm going to turn off prograde now. And we're burning in 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1, and light up the engines. And despite being a more sophisticated vessel and being rather huge and beautiful, it's really not any different than, you know, flying a Delta glider or even a probe. I guess when it boils down to it, physics is physics, and nothing of this much matters. So we've got quite a ways to go to burn through all this Delta V. So let's warp time ahead. And I'm keeping an eye on the amount of Delta V that I need to burn through, obviously, but I'm also watching the semi-major difference. I want to make sure that it reaches 0 at approximately the same time that my Delta V is good and low. And if necessary, I'll do any left-right yaw to help make sure that this doesn't end up at a high number. A little more time warp. And it looks to me like our semi-major difference is going to be at 0 before the Delta V is. So I'm just going to put in a little bit of yaw to maybe slow down the amount that the semi-major difference is counting down by. And we'll see if that helps. $600 more to go on the Delta V. And we can see the semi-majors 1.7. And as the Delta V drops much below 100, Start backing off the main engines, because things happen quickly when you get down that low. And there we have it.
Rotation. Translation.
Now, first thing I'm going to do is a little bit of... Actually, let me go back to the center view for a moment.
Rotation.
Get rotated back to center. And the first thing I'm going to do is a little bit of...
Translation. Rotation. Translation.
Inward lateral translation. That'll bring the semi-major down. And I'm adding in a little bit of forward translation to bring the delta V down. I didn't keep up with the rotation quite enough to get the semi-major to end at 0.00 right in step with when the delta V got low. But it's not too far off. So just a little bit of lateral translation, a little bit of forward translation for the delta V. Actually, now we need a little negative translation on the delta V. And we're getting there. Just a little bit of fine-tuning just to make sure we have a nice clean burn as we pull away from Earth. Semi-major 0.8, 0.7. Just watching the delta V, it keeps going to a negative, so I just tap it one time. Semi-major 0.3, 0.2, 0.175, getting very low. And there we have that. Tap the delta V a couple more times. And there we have that. Maybe just a small tap with the up-down translation. Right about there. Okay, I'd say that's pretty good. That's got us on track at least. So here's how we look as we're pulling away from Earth. And we'll keep an eye on our escape plan and our eject plan. And there's really nothing we can do but warp time ahead at this point to head out to Jupiter. So let's go ahead and do that now. A little bit of 10x, a little bit of 100x so we can pull away quickly. Maybe go to the absolute direction it seems to work best.
Rotation.
Kill rotation.
Translation. Rotation.
And now out to 1,000. And 10,000. As soon as our escape plan ends, we'll consider our first mid-course correction, see if we want to do any immediate corrections here. Gravitational influence of Earth is now down to 0.2. And we'll come forward and look at stage, what this is now stage 2, it was stage 3. And we can just see that our PE ratio is now 8.3 and our relative inclination is 2.8. And that drifts quite a bit because of the fact that as you're pulling away from Earth, there's that whole concept of the gravitational bodies not being completely, modeled in the way they need to be. So we'll go ahead and set up, do a little bit of an adjustment here so we can get the PE ratio and relative inclination back down to what it needs to be, and we'll do that right now. So we'll go to View Maneuver, turn maneuver mode on, go through the variables, and we'll see what does what. Let's start with a little bit of prograde. And that is not the right way. Okay, so with minus 15 on the prograde, we're getting our PE ratio closer to where it needs to be. And let me do the date. Let me bump it forward. It's currently 7213. So let's go out to 7238 or something like that. That'll give me a few minutes to set this up. And put in a little bit of plane change. And that's the wrong way, so let's go this way. And that's going to get our relative inclination closer to 0.00. And now let's work with prograde a bit more for the PE ratio. 1.01, that's good. And that's looking pretty good to me right there. So now we can view our sling here around Jupiter. Looks good. So let's go ahead and burn this maneuver. It's only 43 out of delta V, so it's a pretty small burn.
Translation, rotation.
And now we've got to figure out how we need to rotate the vessel. That's looking to me like it's going the wrong way, so let's go the other way. And what I want to do is just get that green X to one of the 4 positions here. I don't really care which one. This one's the closest, so I'm going to put it there. And now I can begin pitching the vessel down until it gets close to the center position. And we may do a complete, almost a 360 before it gets down to the center. If we look outside, we can see what's going on. Yeah, it looks like it's going to go all the way around and then come up, so I should have went the other way. I never get that part right. And instead of using more rotation, what you can actually do is just use a touch of rotation and then 10x time warp, and that actually saves a little bit of fuel. But I've already put in quite a bit of rotation, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to wait for it to finish rotating. Actually, maybe we will do a little bit of 10x, speed it up. There we go. And you can see that green X coming up. And right about there. And over to the center and down. And we did miss our burn time by, 15 seconds, but that's not going to be a problem. Okay, just a couple touches of main engine. See the delta V counting down. Okay.
Translation.
And there we have it. So we turn maneuver mode off. And now if we look at stage 2, we can see that our P ratio is currently showing 1.01 and our relative inclination is 0.005. Of course, as we go out, we'll need multiple corrections. But that's a good start. Now we barely left home, so we've got a very, very long way to go. So I'm going to warp time out all the way to 100,000, or we're never going to get there. And you can see this stuff dancing all over the place. That'll happen. But we're not going to worry about any of this again until we're at least maybe out to here. And there's not much I can do to reference anything. The vastness of space is quite empty. Because we can look at the ecliptic plane, we can see our target there. And there's Earth and the Moon, that's where we came from. So we are on our way. And I guess we can take maybe a look at our oxygen, see what's going on over here. We've got 5 years, 6 months remaining. And it'll take a while for that to deplete down to the point where we need to worry about coming over to our cargo area and adding in more oxygen. Let me turn off the celestial view. And we can see the date ticking by. It looks like we've been gone, say, June, July, August. About 4 months right now. And our encounter date for Jupiter is 108473. So yeah, we've got a ways to go. Of course, this is where Jupiter's at in its orbit right now. This is where we are. So we're going to come around this green line. Jupiter will come around that blue line, and we'll meet up over here. And of course, we're not going to stop. We're just going to sling straight past and head out to Saturn. This is actually a cheaper way to get to Saturn, by the way, if you were ever setting up a mission, like I did in, what was it, Learn With Me number 2, I believe, when I went to Saturn. I went straight to Saturn, and that actually cost quite a bit more fuel than just going to Saturn by way of Jupiter, because you get that assist when you sling Jupiter. You get a free, a bunch of Delta V for free, basically. And take a look outside. Not a whole lot to look at. There's Jupiter out there and all of its moons. Guess I can turn the radio chatter back on if we are able to get any out here. I don't know. I think the radio chatter might only work if you're in the vicinity of a planet. And I don't really know what much of any of this stuff does. You can see our crew. We've got 4 out of 20. That's our cargo. I have no idea what any of this is. I guess checklists that you can make. Turn the whole thing off. Get help. Might be some useful information in there. I haven't read it yet. Looks like we can select our crew. Looks like we can add more crew just using this, although it wouldn't be realistic to do that while you're already in space on your way somewhere. You'd want to do that while you're on the ground. Very cool ship. I do like the idea of, being the captain of a large vessel like this. I just wish that you could kind of move around a little bit more, almost like a first person, use WASD controls to walk out here onto the bridge and walk up and down the bridge. That would be pretty cool. But all you can really do is this is just a virtual cockpit. It's a much nicer looking virtual cockpit than you get with a lot of the other vessels, but that's really all it is. Alright, let's see how we're coming along. Things aren't too bad really, but let's go ahead and back up time acceleration, and let's do a little bit more mid-course here. Maneuver mode on, and we'll see what prograde does. Okay, that's got our relative inclination flipped to the other side at least. I'm going to reset that, see if I can get a cheaper... Start with the date. And we are getting radio chatter. So instead of 8924, we'll go 8964. That's good enough. And let's start with plane change. That's not really helping. At least not yet. So let's reset that one. And let's see what outward does for us. That's helping, but that's a lot more expensive than the prograde, so let's cancel that one and go back to prograde. Okay, so we'll start there. That has our relative inclination down to 7. And we'll see what we can do now with plane change. Looks really good there. And a PE ratio of 1.03. No real need to refine it beyond that, but let's just go all the way down to a hyper setting here and just see what we can do. Yeah, that looks good. So VW over to view target.
Rotation.
And now the task of getting the green X lined up. And since we've got time, let's just look at our view. So we're putting in positive prograde, and we're putting in positive plane change. So what we need to do
Translation. Rotation.
is rotate toward the prograde position. And there I'm using a little bit of 10x to speed that up so I don't have to use additional thrust. Okay, so we're mostly facing prograde now. Okay, so I'm guessing somewhere right about here is going to be where TransX wants me to be facing. Let's see if I'm right. It should be reasonably close to that. Yep. And there we are, lined up. 10x to get to the point to begin the burn. And we're getting to that point. It's going to be a couple clicks of main engine. And burning.
Translation.
And that's the burn complete. Maneuver mode off, and we can see our outcome here is pretty good. So let's complete the ride out to Jupiter, and then we'll call it apart in the video and pick it up in the next part. And I don't know if I'll actually record the next part today. I may just save the scenario and pick it up a little bit later. But let's at least get out to Jupiter. All the way out to 100,000. And again, we're going to be there at 108,471. So we still got, I guess that's a whole year to go. More than a year. At 100,000, I believe a year is about 5 minutes of time warp. we can see our destination. And something else I can do right before I get all the way out to Jupiter and come back to real time for a moment, I can see, I can go forward to the next stage and kind of start looking at how things are shaping up over here at Saturn. I'm not going to worry too much about this stage at this time, but you know, I can see already that there are going to have to be changes. So with this part in stage 4, I can come forward here to stage 3, and I can work with my outward angle and inclination to start thinking ahead a little bit. So let's go to a medium and just kind of start playing around here till we get things looking better. In fact, let me go to this view first. So that's a start. Let's go to inclination. And I gotta check that 1 second. Not important. And back to outward. And that has the relative inclination getting pretty close to 0. So now back to outward. And inclination. Outward. Got a really low inclination there, but our PE ratio is a little off. So let's see what we can do to correct that. That's looking better. And inclination. That's good enough for now. I'll have to make a lot of adjustments to the Saturn sling after I pass Jupiter, but at the very least, once you get close to the planet, I think it's a good idea to start thinking about the next one in the sequence. So, because you'll see what'll happen when I now come back to the Jupiter sling. The adjustments that I made in order to get the Saturn sling more lined up have at least some minimal impact on the Jupiter sling. Okay, so we're still in good shape though. Let's just continue forward at 100,000. And again, 469, we're at 152, so a little ways to go yet. Let's check our oxygen. We're down to 4 years. So just out of curiosity, I want to see if I know how to use this. So I'm going to say use O2. Let me just check real quick. 70.6% O2. So use O2. And now we're at 99%. Okay, so I did it right. I know how to use that. Easy enough. That one's empty, so I'm guessing we can deploy it. Release. I think I might have released the wrong one, though. At any rate, there it is. Okay, continue time warping or we're never going to get there. But now I know how the oxygen thing works. Let's just hope I brought enough. Where are we at? 466. So 200 days to go. Okay. Seems like we're getting a little bit of radio chatter. $286. Boy, it takes a while to go to the outer planets. Let's do a little bit of a mid-course. Back to real time. Maneuver mode on, and this shouldn't take long at all. So, a little bit of prograde. And that's going the wrong way. And it looks like we need maybe just a tiny bit of plane change. That looks good right there. Although I forgot to do the date, so let's bump the date forward. 2090, let's just go 2100. Still looks good. Let's do this burn.
Rotation.
Didn't bump the date out quite forward far enough, but it will be okay. But just to double check, we can come back to maneuver mode and we can reset the date, and then I can go, instead of 2107, make it like that, but we can see our numbers are still great. But at least now we've got a little bit of a countdown. In fact, I went too far with it. Let's not go forward that far. There, that'll be good. And it's just going to be like one bump of main engine because we've only got 16 delta V here. And burning. Okay.
Translation.
And that's good enough. Maneuver. Off, things look good. And back to 10,000. 100,000 rather. 315. So maybe just a couple of minutes left here of time warp. And there's Jupiter. And we're already getting, it's rather significant gravitational influence being as far out as we are. Change the projection to the ship, distance, and we'll go to the equatorial frame. And our stage is updated. Let's bring TransX back up. Over here. And we're now, about 50 days out. Okay, now we are about 20 days out. Since we're this close, let me do one thing before we actually close the distance. Let's come forward again and look at our Saturn sling. And we can kind of see that, you know, it's not ideal. So let's do some adjustments here just to maybe clean it up a little bit. Okay, that is going the wrong way. This just gives me a better idea of exactly how I need to go around Jupiter. And that's looking really good there. That's the Saturn sling. So let's go backwards now. And that doesn't have too much of an impact on the way we're going to come around Jupiter, so good. Okay. Let's go forward. I'm gonna go all the way to 100,000 just to get in there quickly. Yeah, you can see our PU ratio is holding really close to 1, and our relative inclination is, you know, fluctuating, but it's still low. Whoa, 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 we almost blew right by it. So I guess I'll stay, well, let me go all the way to real time for a moment. so we can look at Jupiter out the front window.
Rotation.
And this is what I think would be cool, if you could actually, you know, go into first person mode and just walk up and down the aisle here of the Aero Freighter and just, you know, being like in a real starship. But since we're in this virtual cockpit mode, you know, we can't move the camera any farther than there in that direction and any further than there that way. So we're fairly limited to what we can do here. But I do like all the additional viewing that you get with this ship. It's really cool. It gives you more of a sense of being a, you know, an actual, like, space captain or something. You know, whereas when you're cramped up in the Delta Glider or XR2, you know, you don't quite get that feeling of actually being a space explorer. At least I don't. But this ship definitely gives me that feeling. I just wish, you know, it had a few more bells and whistles kind of thing. So, anyway, let's see. I guess we can move in a little closer. We're basically getting really close to periapsis. And we're just at 100x right now. We'll go to 1,000. And what we could do also, since we're now here at Jupiter, the Aero Freighter has this docking bay underneath here. We could actually take an XR2 or Delta Glider out from this cargo area, because this cargo area is actually huge. These, oh, in fact, let me open it up and show you. It's really quite neat. Docking bay open. You can see here it shows that it's opening. It takes a while to open, so we'll go to 10x. But you can see how huge this docking bay is. And you can actually come right up underneath of it with an XR2, and using translation thrusters, you know, up-down translation, you can bring your XR2 inside of this bay, and you can dock it right here. You can see where those 4 blue lights are at. That's actually a docking collar. In fact, it even says here, if you look at it, it says dock. So you can bring, like I said, a Delta Glider, an XR2, and you can bring it right in there and dock. So if we had one with us, we could open this door and undock the XR2, and then bring it down away from the vessel, and we could take it and go land on, you know, one of these moons over here, Ganymede, Io, Europa. I actually even have a base on Europa, so that would have been a good target. Okay, let's go ahead and close that up. Close the docking bay. And there it is, it's closed. So we're now at our closest approach here to Jupiter, or actually we're still just a little bit away from the closest approach. So let's warp time forward at 1,000, and we'll just watch ourselves come around. Maybe we'll come forward to this view. Beautiful ship. I love the views that you get with this Aero Freighter. It's absolutely beautiful.
Translation. Rotation.
We can rotate our vessel a little bit. And we'll go back to the captain's chair. And we are still not quite at periapsis. Wow.
Translation. Rotation.
Take a look outside. And that is our Jupiter sling. I'm getting a nice look at Io over there now. Let's see if we have any other moons in sight. No, not at the moment. Very cool orbiter, man. It's awesome. And I believe we're passing periapsis at this point. Yeah, we're past it. So now we're getting farther away. Okay, I'm going to say that makes for a good stopping point right here with Jupiter out the front window.
Translation. Rotation.
So I'm going to go ahead and Control S to save the simulation. And something that I need to keep in mind, because I found this out in my Mars, Venus, Earth sling. Whenever you save your scenario, if you have a transx plan set up like I do, make darn sure that you have transx up on the MFDs. In one of my scenarios that I saved, I had like orbit MFD on one of them, and I don't know, align plane or whatever on the other one. I don't remember what they were, but I didn't have transx on one of the MFDs. And when you save, when you press Control S, if you don't have transx up on one of the MFDs, then when you come back to that scenario, all your transx plans are gone. So I have to try to remember now, whenever I'm working with these, you know, complex slings that have lots and lots of layers, make sure that you have transx up, at least on one. It doesn't have to be on both, but at least on one of these MFDs. That way when you Control S, it saves all of your slings, it saves all of your plans, all your stages. Okay, so I'm going to end this video here. If you have any questions about anything you saw in this part, go ahead and leave those questions down below. And of course, if you like the video, let me know by leaving a comment and just let me know what you think. And I will see you in the next part. Pause.